Hello and welcome to One Mind Dharma's online meditation group. Thank you all for joining us on YouTube and on Periscope. This will be recorded and saved on YouTube. It'll also be sent out in podcast form, so you can visit oneminddharma.com and click the podcast link at the top if you wish to download or save either the meditation or the recorded talk for later. So we're going to start today with a brief 15-minute meditation, and then we'll move into a brief little talk about impermanence and what that means and why we chose this topic today to kind of investigate. So we're going to go ahead and sit for 15 minutes. So you can go ahead and allow the eyes to close and settle into a comfortable meditation posture. If you're sitting in a chair, I recommend trying to keep the feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, keeping the spine upright. And especially when we meditate at the end of the day, it can be difficult to settle and arrive in this present time experience after everything during the day and everything we need to get done. And I like to use the breath to just arrive here in this present time experience. Taking a breath in and reaching the spine upwards, bringing some energy and alertness to the posture. And as you exhale, just letting go, feeling the body where it is and allowing there to be some relaxation. Inhaling and energizing the spine or skeleton, and exhaling, relaxing the muscles around it, allowing the shoulders to drop, allowing the butt to soften in the chair or cushion, allowing there to be some slack in the jaw. Breathing in, feeling the lungs fill with air, the expansion of the rib cage, bringing life to the body. And as you exhale, just letting go, letting the air go, letting the muscles go, letting the problems of the day go. And we'll do a brief body scan, just moving through the body and seeing what's present. Maybe bringing some special attention to the quality of impermanence or fluidity, the little changes in the direct physical experience. So tuning into the crown of the head, and just noticing whatever is actually present for you. There's no right or wrong or good or bad or anything you should or should not be experiencing. Maybe you can feel the temperature of the air on the skin, the hair, some tension or maybe some ease. You don't need to put words to it or try to figure it out, but just noticing how it actually feels physically. And tuning into the forehead and the brow. Noticing any scrunching, the temperature of the air, any itches, whatever's present for you. And dropping down into the eyes and the bridge of the nose. Even with the eyes closed, maybe we can feel some movement, the blinking, into the tip of the nose and the upper lip. Noticing the air coming in the nostrils, the cool air, and coming out just a little bit warmer. It's a subtle sensation, but it's relatively easy to see the fluidity of experience here at the breath, the changing nature. Into the mouth and jaw, the teeth, lips, tongue. What's present for you? What can you actually feel? Dropping into the neck, the back of the neck, around to the front and throat. Out the tops of the shoulders, the traps, the shoulder blades. Maybe feeling the clothes on the body. Any tension. Out the shoulders and into the upper arms and elbows. Into the forearms and wrists. Noticing any points of contact where the forearms may be touching the chair or the lap. And into the hands, the palm, the fingers, the back of the hand. Again, noticing the points of contact. Maybe tuning into how the temperature of the air feels on the palm versus the back of the hand. Moving back up into the chest. For me, the most obvious sensation is the movement related to the breath, the expansion and contraction, and rising and falling. Just tuning into this with awareness of the present time experience. Letting go of judgments, letting go of trying to figure it out, or trying to have the perfect meditation. And just cultivating this ability to be with the present experience. Moving down on into the abdomen, the stomach, the obliques. Maybe noticing the breath in this spot too. Any feelings related to hunger or lack of hunger. Any tension. Practicing soft belly, letting the muscles go a little bit. And dropping down into the hips, the thighs, the groin. Noticing how it feels to be sitting on the chair or couch or cushion or floor. The point of contact and the weight. Dropping on down into the knees, the calves, the shins. What's present for you here in the lower leg? And finally into the ankles and the feet, going from the heel to the arch to the ball of the foot, the toes, the tops, bringing awareness to the points of contact where the feet are touching the floor or tucked up underneath you, and anything else that arises for you. And now here, opening up the awareness to feel the whole body at once, from head to toe, as a complete unit of all these different little parts. You can kind of get a sense of the whole body sitting here. As you breathe, you can feel some movement in the body, not just in the chest or at the tip of the nose, but in the abdomen, maybe in the hips, in the back at the shoulder blades, or feeling the shoulders rise and fall. And you can allow your awareness to be completely open to physical experience, sensations in the body, noticing what's grabbing your attention. So just sitting there right now, not tuning into any one body part, but leaving the awareness open and seeing what arises. For example, I notice an itch on my back, and I'm tuning into it. And now I notice a slight pain in my foot. I'm tuning into that and seeing what it feels like. Letting the judging mind go, the add-ons. Any thoughts that come up after the direct physical experience. And just returning to the body over and over again like this. Noticing where the mind's drawn. Tuning in for a moment and then opening the awareness back up. It doesn't take long for most of us to notice that the mind begins to wander, and not resisting that or judging it, but responding with some gentleness. Of course the mind wanders. The brain's function is to think. It's just doing its job. We can always return to the breath, using it as an anchor. The breath is always with us, the in and out, the rising and falling, at the chest and the abdomen, at the tip of the nose. Using this as an anchor, returning to it as many times as necessary, and coming back into the direct experience we're having right now with the physical body. Seeing what grabs your attention in the body, investigating it, bringing some curiosity to the experience, and then opening the awareness back up to see what else arises. And in this last minute or so before the bell rings to end the meditation, just putting forth a little bit of extra effort, really trying to stick with it. Stay with the body. If you have an itch, look at it, see how it really feels, not just your judgment or idea of what an itch feels like. So thank you for joining us for that meditation. I thought I'd give a little talk about impermanence, and this was inspired by, as many things with us are, inspired by our social media, and we posted something about everything being impermanent, and of course, as with many things, people disagree, and of course, we appreciate the disagreement and someone voicing their opinion, and I think that we can learn a lot from it. And it kind of made me think that this idea of impermanence needs some further explaining, because it's not quite clear just to say everything's impermanent, deal with it, and you'll suffer less. Doesn't seem incredibly helpful to people. So, the final words of the Buddha. This is an important teaching in Buddhism. This teaching of impermanence. The final words of the Buddha are documented as being all component things are subject to change, are impermanent. Strive on with heedfulness. So his last two thoughts for the world, for his followers, were everything's impermanent and strive on with heedfulness, which would suggest that this is a really important topic. The Buddha, I believe, didn't leave us with the idea of impermanence because he didn't know what else to say. Presumably, it was something really important that he felt that he needed to share, and it is that important. The Buddhist word for impermanence is anicca, Anicca, and we often translate it's a Pali word, the language of the Buddha, and we often translate it as impermanence. But it's important to understand with these Pali words where they actually come from. The word nicca, with being the opposite of, nicca actually means constant or dependable. Some people translate it as stable. So there's an important piece that we need to understand there, that anicca, or this word impermanence as we call it, isn't really impermanence as much as instability or inconstant or in flux or fluid and changing. And there is a difference there, because you look at certain things and they do seem relatively permanent, such as back pain. That's a big argument we get against impermanence is, oh, I have chronic pain, it's just permanent, it's not going away. And although it may not go away for you very much at all, it of course will go away when you die. So it is impermanent, but it is also anicca in the sense that when you really tune into that back pain, is it the same in every single moment? Is the quality always the same? Is it always in the same exact spot? Does it come and go in strength? Or is it sharp in one moment but dull in another? Is it a burning? Does it spread? And you can feel it with simple things like an itch. You feel an itch and it feels like it just won't leave, and when you tune into it, there's actually like some movement there. It's like tingling or stinging 1 second, and then it kind of like moves, or it's burning. And we can see that quality of impermanence in everything. And impermanence is one of the Buddha's 3 marks of existence, that everything has, all phenomena we see and experience has these 3 marks of existence. One is that everything's impermanent. Um, Everything is dukkha, which is often translated as suffering, but again, not the best translation. My understanding of dukkha, or everything is suffering, is everything is unsatisfactory. It doesn't satisfy us fully. And this is in relation to impermanence. If something doesn't last forever and doesn't stay the same forever, how can it lead to lasting happiness? Everything is of the nature to not satisfy because of this. And then the last one is anatta, or no self, which is often misunderstood as there is no self. I'm not here speaking and you're not there listening. And again, that's not what anatta is. That's a complete misunderstanding of it. The teaching of anatta is simply that nothing has an inherent self. It's dependent upon other things, it's changing, and it's fluid. I mean, it's nothing is itself for a long time, and we can see that right with the body. In The Heart of the Revolution, Noah Levine's book, he gives the example that every cell in your body is regenerated. So the body that you had when you were a small child is not the same body physically that you have today, and that's a complete kind of uh, mind screw to think about that the body that you had when you were a kid is not actually physically the exact same body you have today. It's changing. And obviously it's grown, or your hair is longer, or your hair is shorter, or, I have piercings and tattoos, so there are obvious ways that it's different. But even at like the cellular level, the body is always changing. And we can see this in simpler ways. We get sick, we get pain, we break things, they heal. And of course, the body is bound to die. And that was one of the practices the Buddha offered on impermanence, was to contemplate a body decaying, in order to remind ourselves that this body is of the nature to die. It's of the nature to get sick. It's of the nature to get old. And that's the less resistance we have to that, the better. And the more understanding of impermanence we have, the easier it will be for us to not resist it, essentially. Everything, I mean, I could go through a list of things that are impermanent. Of course, the body is. Everything we see and experience, really. You look at everything from your coffee table, which of course didn't always exist as a coffee table, at least, and will not always exist as a coffee table. Animals, of course, anything living is subject to death and aging and sickness and old age. And even big things like, the universe. Well, science suggests now that the universe is changing. Maybe it's very slowly, and our perception of it is not that it's changing, but it is. It's always in a state of flux, not stable, not dependable. And I think dependable is a great word because it hints that we can't rely on it for all of our happiness. Our thoughts are absolutely impermanent. I know for me, like one of the things that brought me to practice was anger. I would get caught in these just obsessive thoughts over and over again about this person or that person, how they wronged me and what I could do better, and just these thoughts of anger. And it felt very strong, like it was me, like it was just there and it was bound to stay there and it will always be there. And of course, I absolutely still have moments of anger, but it comes and goes. And again, that speaks to the not self. I would identify as I'm an angry person. And through my understanding of impermanence and watching it go, I've been able to see, oh, look, like anger is arising. I'm not an angry person. I don't have anger. There is just anger coming up. And it comes and it goes. Whether it's heartbreak, whether it's love, which we'll speak more about later, the thoughts come and go. And so do the emotions, the heartbreak, the love, the anger, and the thought patterns that go with them. So I was talking to someone recently, a mentee of mine, a student of mine, and they asked, why is impermanence so important? It seems like there are more important teachings like don't kill things, or be nice to your fellows kind of thing, or the Metta Sutta. And I think it's really important because the Buddha stressed these three poisons or three unwholesome roots. Um, Craving is one, craving for more pleasant things, averting or hatred from the things that are unpleasant, and then the delusion about uh, that craving is going to lead to happiness, or that averting from the bad stuff then will be happy. And I think that impermanence is related there because when we see things as impermanent, we no longer need to crave and cling to them. We no longer need to run away from things so much. And I'm not saying if you're in a dangerous situation and someone's causing you harm, of course, keep yourself safe and get out of the situation. That's different than aversion in the Buddhist sense. What aversion is if you're feeling an unpleasant emotion or an unpleasant experience in the body, maybe an itch or a pain, or maybe you feel sad. Maybe you lost a job and you're feeling hard on yourself and it's unpleasant. To not avert from that, to not run away and try to make it better, with drugs or going to a movie or a number of things people do, but to really just sit in it for a moment. And again, that does not mean to mope in it either, but to really sit in it and notice the changing nature in the body, in the mind, the emotions that come with it. And then on the other side of the coin of hatred is craving or clinging to something that's pleasant. So, what do we do when we have something that's pleasant? And easy examples are I am in a very happy relationship with Elizabeth, who helps me run One Mind Dharma. Our relationship is pleasant for the most part. Of course, we have disagreements. Of course, I'm wrong, and that feels unpleasant. But for the most part, it's pleasant, and I love her very much. And when we're apart, she's all I can think about. Now that craving is delusional because when I get near her, that same missing her feeling that I had doesn't last forever. I'm happy to see her. I went on retreat for 30 days last year at Spirit Rock, which was frankly the longest we'd been apart from each other. We lived together, we built a life together, and I missed her so much and had to sit there and sit with it and notice the missing her come up, and because it's relation to something pleasant in my life. It's a pleasant experience being around her. And when I got home, it was so nice, that first embrace, those first couple days, just to see her and be with her. And then of course, that quality of missing her faded because I was now with her. So it's impermanent. These things that we think are so pleasant are just going to make us happy and fix it. That's craving. And our understanding of impermanence can help us not cling so much to them, to see them for their true nature, and to kind of have a healthy wanting for them. I can healthily want to be in the sunshine without obsessing about it, knowing that it may not be sunny forever, knowing that my happiness in the sun won't be forever. And I think our understanding of impermanence also goes towards speaking about this idea of dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness. I mentioned this when we talked about the 3 marks of existence, but the reason everything is dukkha, or suffering, or unsatisfactoriness is because everything's impermanent. And it's not to say that life is sorrow and life is sad and let's all be cynics about life. Rather, it's to understand that everything's changing. We can't rest our happiness on those things. And that's not just external things, that's internal things. For example, it feels really pleasant when I have a concentrated meditation sit. Sometimes I go to sit and my mind is just centered from the beginning and I'm seeing clearly and it feels very pleasant. No outside circumstances taken into account, just the mind, internal factors. And it's pleasant, but it's impermanent because the next time I go sit, it may not be like that. So I can't cling to it. It's just causing me unhappiness, a sense of not being satisfied or fulfilled. So once we have this understanding of impermanence, what exactly can we do with it? There's I mean, I'll take a step back. How do we bring more attention to impermanence? And the biggest way we do this is through mindfulness practice, through the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or vipassana, or noting practice. And what we do is we note, just kind of like what we were doing in the meditation earlier, just noticing what's coming up? Something always is coming up, something's fading, going with the flow and seeing this changing nature of experience. Paulo Coelho said, "Anyone who has lost something they thought was theirs forever finally comes to realize that nothing really belongs to them." Anyone who has lost something they thought was theirs forever finally comes to realize that nothing really belongs to them. And we can do that in meditation practice. We unconsciously identify with the itch or the pain or the thinking mind. And when it goes, we realize, oh, that's not me. That wasn't my thought. That wasn't my itch. The Buddha said, "The perceiving of impermanence, bhikkhus," which is like monks or holy ones, "the perceiving of impermanence, developed and frequently practiced, removes all sensual passion, removes all passion for material existence, removes all passion for becoming, removes all ignorance, removes and abolishes all conceit of I am. Just as in the autumn a farmer, plowing with a large plow, cuts through all the spreading rootlets as he plows, in the same way, the perceiving of impermanence developed and frequently practiced removes all sensual passion, all passion for material existence, all passion for becoming, all ignorance, and abolishes all conceit of I am." So we can cultivate our understanding or our perceiving, as the Buddha calls it, of impermanence through this meditation practice of looking at what's going on. If we tune into our experience long enough in silent meditation practice, we're bound to notice some impermanence. We can make a special effort to bring our awareness to it, but it just kind of happened naturally for me. I've sat with the 4 foundations of mindfulness on retreat, and I'd heard the teaching of impermanence, but wasn't purposefully focusing on it. And I had a moment, kind of a white light experience where, oh wow, look, everything's impermanent, coming and going, rising and falling. I think we have to be careful not to use impermanence as a cop-out or a safety net. I'm in 12-step recovery, and there's a phrase, "this too shall pass," which is absolutely true. Everything too shall pass. But there could be a tendency to use it as a form of aversion. You're going through something pleasant, and you just think, "Oh, this will pass. I'm just going to get through it. This will pass." Is not really being with it. You can be with something and notice its impermanence. But by just saying, "Oh, it's impermanent. I'll just wait till it's gone," and try to divert my attention. We have to be careful of how we use our understanding of impermanence. Are we using it to be with the present time experience and understand it better, or are we using it to run away from the present time experience? Now, in meditation practice, we can sit with these foundations of mindfulness or the body scan or even mindfulness of thoughts or hearing and notice the impermanence, absolutely. We can also notice impermanence in our daily lives. Again, going back to anger, or if it's anxiety for you, or worry, or regret, when you have an emotion like that, or whatever you want to call that, tuning into the body, tuning into like, oh wow, I can feel my heart racing a little bit in fear, or in anxiety, or I can feel my fists clenching in anger, and noticing the thought pattern, right? Because for me with anger, I truly believe in my experience that emotions are a combination of a thought pattern and a feeling in the body. That's been my experience directly through looking at emotions. So when I have anger occurring, I see the anger arise, and I see this thought pattern, this obsessive thinking about, fixing something or fixing someone, and this feeling in the body. And tuning into it and seeing the different things happening can kind of help us break down these emotions that we so strongly identify. And it can also lead to a deeper understanding of impermanence and not self, of course. But there really is an infinite amount of opportunity to practice our understanding of impermanence in daily life with anything that's occurring, any direct experience, a noise, a taste, a smell, a physical sensation, a thinking mind, anything we see, that impermanence is all around us when we look. So I thought I would end with a couple of questions. We asked you to, if you wanted to text a question, you could text it to us at my cell phone, which I don't know how good of an idea that was to give my cell phone out online, but we'll see. Um, and we got we got a lot of questions that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to speak to. But we got a couple people that asked the same question, and I said we'll talk about this later because I knew the question would come in. Is what about love? True love is permanent. It lasts forever. Um, and someone even elaborated a little more and made a really great point, which is if you love and act with love in the world, even when you die, that love still exists. You're still affecting the people around you. Um, and that was kind of how they left it. And I understand that, and I agree with that. I think there are people in my life who have acted in ways that now they're dead, and they inspire me to act in a certain way. For example, someone was very loving and kind and generous, and it touched me. And even though they're gone, either from this planet or out of my life, it has encouraged me to love or be generous a little bit more. So I see that line of thinking, and I hear that. And I also totally understand the desire for love to be permanent or stable. My best answer to that, and I get asked that every time I talk about impermanence, is I go back to the example of my fiance and I, and when I talked to my dad a little bit. My parents have been married for 35 years, still married happily, I think. Um, they seem happy at least. And I remember asking my dad once, what's the secret? And he said, well, first he said we're best friends, which was adorable, and I appreciated that. But he also said, listen, every day, these things about like marriage is just Groundhog Day over and over again. He says, not true. Every day is something a little bit different. You're going to feel a different way. You're going to grow together or grow in different ways, and you're going to have to work with that. And it kind of brings to mind that idea of impermanence. Yes, my parents love each other a ton, but that quality of love changes, and I've seen it in my own relationship. With the example of when I'm gone for 30 days and I walk up and get to see my loved one for the first time, that feeling of love is excitement. It's joy. I can feel it in my whole body just wanting to burst and be with this person and hug her. And then there's also the love of, you know, she got into grad school recently, Elizabeth did, and there was that love of being proud, of being happy for her, of being happy for us in our life. Um, and there's a different quality there. There's a different thought pattern. There's a different feeling in the body. So yeah, love can be stable in the sense that it's there for a while, but it's changing, and you got to tune into it. I really think that. I've had people come back and say, no, it's not. Like, I love the person the same every day. And maybe that's your experience. I encourage, if that is so, to tune in a little more deeply and a little more often and see if maybe you can find anything that feels a little different. The other question we got a couple about, and I'm going to combine two questions here, is pain, which I spoke about a little bit, and then serious things like depression, trauma, and then someone mentioned some things about, we had one comment about it on Facebook too, but a couple people asked me about, like, what about oppression? What about these people that just are oppressed their whole lives? And it doesn't even have to be like some major oppression or like genocide or anything, but even those slight things that we don't think about. What about that experience? It's pretty permanent. And again, it just comes back to the understanding of what permanent is with all these things. It doesn't mean that it's going to disappear one day necessarily. It just means that it's changing. Tune into these little subtle changes, and it'll help us not identify with it. It'll help us see clearly what's going on. We can tune into the change in the experience and our reaction to it. And, I'm bipolar. I I understand how that's permanent. Like, I'm probably going to be bipolar the rest of my life, I would imagine. I mean, it's not permanent in the sense that I assume my bipolar mind will die when I die. So it's definitely not permanent in that sense. But it's also not permanent whether it's depression or trauma. Again, it's always changing. And, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to say that one day it'll all leave you and you'll feel way better. But I do know for myself with my bipolar that when I get into those episodes of depression, to tune into it and see that it doesn't always feel the same. I'm not always just sad and angry. Sometimes I'm a little frustrated. Sometimes I'm apathetic. Sometimes I'm sad. It changes. And of course, it's still like a depressive episode, but it's not always the same. Now, the last thing we got that I don't want to touch super too many times, and we actually just got a text while we were meditating about it too, was what about God? God's permanent. I my my best response to that is that the Buddha didn't teach about a God. He didn't stress the importance of a creator. When people asked him, he said, "I know, but it's not important to your practice." And if you do believe in a creator or God, my best advice is to investigate it. I personally don't believe in a God or a creator, so that question's not really applicable to me. But if you do, that doesn't mean that they're incompatible. Maybe take your investigation of impermanence and look at your relationship with your higher power. Look at how you can feel God's love or God working in your life or whatever it is, because it's bound to be changing. I don't really have a wonderful answer to that, and I apologize. I just thought we got so many questions about it, I had to address it. Um, so that's that. So to wrap up with impermanence, I encourage you in daily life to try to take a little bit of time to investigate where impermanence is present in your life. Hint, it's everywhere. Try to see in those moments when you're walking, feeling the impermanence of the sensations in the feet as the feet move across the ground. Try to feel it at your work when you feel frustrated in one moment with work and in the next moment you're done with work and you feel better. There's so many, again, the possibilities are infinite. Impermanence is always with us. I especially have found it helpful, and I'll leave you with this. When I find myself feeling like something's permanent or I'm stuck, that's the best time to bring some awareness to impermanence in my life. When I'm depressed and I feel like I'm going to feel this way forever. When I'm in physical pain and you lose sight that it's not going to last forever, tune into it. See the little subtle changes. Not so it'll go away, just so you can understand it better and not resist it so much. So that's all I have. I thank everyone for joining us. As always, you are welcome to email me at Matthew, 2T's, Matthew, at oneminddharma.com with any questions or thoughts, or if you'd like to chat. We will do this again next Tuesday with a new topic. And next Tuesday, we will be on Periscope as well and on YouTube here. So if you have any questions for us, you're welcome to text me at 415-858-5586. This will be recorded and saved on YouTube as well as sent out on a podcast. So again, you can visit www.oneminddharma.com and click the podcast link to give a listen to this later. Thank you all.